Hello, welcome to my video of what I saw for the first time in 2020. If you are new here, I greatly appreciate this, and if you are a returning subscriber, I greatly appreciate you as well. And this video, I will be talking about all the movies I saw for the first time in 2020. I have a video out called what I saw for the first time in November and what I saw for the first time in December. I will be going through all the movies from what I saw from January 2020 to October, and then I will end the video there, and then you can watch in the description or above of a video of both November and December of first time watches. I will be talking about the films that I thought are worth talking about, and I'll just mention, the ones that I saw that, were just like, okay, or I'll just give a thumbs up, thumbs down, or, eh, you know, to kind of emphasize on those. But then the other ones I'll talk about, so this video might be a little long, or maybe smashed down into two parts, I don't know. But we shall see how it goes. You guys know, because you guys are watching it and I'm making the video right now. So let's get into January of 2020. The first film I saw of 2020 and what I saw for the first time was a film by D.W. Griffith, a silent epic called Intolerance, Love Struggle Throughout the Ages. The story of a poor young woman separated by prejudice from her husband and baby is interwoven with tales of intolerance from throughout history. This stars Lillian Gish and is just a fantastic, epic film. About 3 hours long, and man, like, I'm a huge fan of silent films. I don't know if any of you are watching are fans of silent films, but this is truly what you would call epic. Has grand sets and goes from the beginning of time to modern times and is pretty incredible. I actually recommend this film. It's really good. And then the next one is Brian De Palma's Blowout, starring John Travolta. It's one of those films, paranoid films, about a guy who makes sound for films, and he witnesses an accident and discovers with his sound equipment that there's something strange. And oh man, it's such a great flick, and I highly recommend it. It's like a good 9.1 out of 10. It's fantastic. And then we have 1969's Midnight Cowboy, Best Picture winner, starring both Jon Voight and Dustin Hoffman. It's about a man, eye-wide hustler from Texas, hoping to score big with wealthy New York City women. And a lot of you might know this film through just the iconic line, "I'm walking here, I'm walking here," my best impression of Dustin Hoffman. But anyways, it's good. It's really good. I highly recommend this one. And then we have the Defiant Ones. One of my favorite movie stars of all time, Sidney Poitier. The film is about two convicts, a white racist and an angry black man, escape while chained to each other. Oh, so good. The Defiant Ones is, oh my gosh, I love this movie. It's like a good 9.4 out of 10. Like, I highly recommend this. It's so good. I mean, that premise should grab you in right away, so I highly recommend it. And then we have Angels with Dirty Faces, a great gangster film from the 1930s, starring James Cagney. I had low expectations for this because I'm not a big fan of the older gangster films. I'm more a fan of the newer ones, kind of like, Goodfellas or whatever. But this really surprised me. I really like this. It's a good, like, 7.8 out of 10. And then, beginning, because this movie was, doing its Oscar award rounds in New York and LA. Then it finally came out in early January 1917. And I don't really need to say much because it speaks for itself. And then I saw for the first time the original Scarface, directed by Howard Hawks from 1932. Not a lot of people know that the Al Pacino Scarface is not the original. This is the original Scarface, and it is excellent. Not as good as, the remake, but the original is actually pretty good. It's a good 7.5 out of 10. And then I saw a movie called Devil. It was okay, but a movie, one of those movies that takes place in just one place, an elevator. It was fine. Then I saw Ghost in the Shell, which a lot of you guys know I'm not a fan of anime, and I'm probably going to get a hate for this, but I was rather bored with Ghost in the Shell. And then I saw Chris Rock in Down to Earth. And then I saw Larger Than Life. And then I saw Ghostbusters. Oh my gosh, guys. Like, this movie, oh my gosh. Like, probably gonna get hate for this too, but I'm not a fan of this movie at all. And I wonder why it took a long time, and it was just like, it's not even that memorable. And then, like Mike, this movie was only on my radar because I can't remember which VHS it was on, but I always saw the trailer to this on a VHS of mine years ago, and it was like, hey, it's on a streaming service, and I'll watch it. Like, hey, it was fine. It was okay. And then before the theater shut down, I saw Spies in Disguise. Not a huge fan. I am not a huge fan of Spies in Disguise. It was rather boring. And then I saw SpongeBob SquarePants. I mean, I've been watching the show. It's okay, but SpongeBob SquarePants, the movie, not that great. And then 1945's Detour. It's a fine little film. I liked it, but it's a worthwhile one-time watch. And then Buster Keaton's Our Hospitality. Yeah, okay. It's okay, but more of his other films are better than this one. But this was a fine watch for at least once. And then before theaters started closing and before the pandemic came, this is in January, where it didn't really start till March. But I went on a watching spree of watching the final films that I hadn't seen of the James Bond movies on Her Majesty's Secret Service. Basically just watching this, because, hey, you know what? Let's watch it in time for No Time to Die. So, and then we have Jumanji: The Next Level. It's good. Not as good as the first Jumanji. Not the original, but the first Jumanji of these new ones. It is good though. It was a fun movie. And then I saw the sequel to Godzilla of the original Godzillas from the 50s, Godzilla Raids Again. And then got curious and watched American Graffiti, directed by George Lucas and Ron Howard. That movie was fine. Worth watching once, but I wouldn't watch it again. And then I saw Piranha 3 Double D. Okay. And then I saw Heavy Metal 2000. It's kind of a weird movie. And then I saw 1949's White Heat. And then, as well as seeing what I guess is like the first 3 or 4 episodes of the original Zorro TV show from the 50s. But this movie was like 4 episodes put in together called The Sign of Zorro. It's fine. It's okay. I wouldn't recommend, but... And finishing off January, Invaders from Mars. Not that... A very cheap sci-fi film from the 50s. And then we had a Amazon original... Well, not Amazon. A documentary on Amazon that I highly recommend called The Birth of the Tramp about Charlie Chaplin. It's it's an excellent movie. And then we have Zombieland Double Tap. Not as good as the first Zombieland, but still good. It was a lot of fun. And then we have Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse. It's a bit weird. It's a bit weird. And then finally, I went to the theater and saw Knives Out. I was a bit late to the party on this one, and I love this movie. It's pretty incredible. Like, Ryan Johnson directs it well. Yeah, Daniel Craig has that accent, but come on. We got Chris Evans and you got Laurie Strode. And it's just fantastic. Like, you don't get these type of films anymore, and was refreshing to see because, man, I would say when I was watching in the theater, about the first maybe 20 minutes were kind of hard to get into, and then when it started to go, it was like, wow, okay, this is incredible. And it's like, I've seen this movie since seeing it for the first time in theaters earlier of 2020. It was good. I saw it probably another 4 times, not at the theater, but obviously, but with friends and stuff like that. And then the next movie at the theater I saw was Bad Boys for Life. It's was actually surprising. I had low expectations for it. Wasn't expecting to what I was gonna get, but it was really good. It was not as good as obviously the first two, but it was actually surprisingly good. So, and then the next film I saw was Critical Condition, a comedy from the 1980s. Not that memorable. Just extremely okay. And then we have John Carpenter's The Fog from 1980. Not that great either. For me, at least in my opinion, it just was okay. I'm not a big fan. And then the last day of January, we have El Camino, a Breaking Bad movie, which it was good. It was nice to see the characters come back from Breaking Bad and reprise their roles and finish the stories and what they did with the ending for Breaking Bad. And if you haven't seen Breaking Bad, excellent TV show. And then we have, beginning in the February, we have Terminator Dark Fate. Probably a lot of people seem to like this one better than the Terminator Genisys. I'm not a fan of this one either. For me, it's on par with Terminator Genisys or Genisys. It's just they just like ruined like the plotline for Terminator 2, which is the best Terminator movie, and so it was rather disappointing. And then the next film I saw was Gemini Man. It was okay. I'm a big fan of the director. But it was rather disappointing because he had directed one of my favorite films, Life of Pi, and Gemini Man is just such a huge step down. Yeah, it was nice seeing Will Smith and whatever, but it just was rather disappointing. And then a very completely forgettable film from 2019, Captive State. This movie is just so dull and just drags out and just like, I think it's just like one of those movies where you just look down at your phone, fiddle with your phone, and try to get through it. So, was not a fan. And then we have Netflix's In the Tall Grass which is a Stephen King adaptation. This was an interesting movie. It was good like the first half, and then it just gets really weird towards the end. And for me, you gotta really land the ending for me to like a movie, and this it's a fun to watch the first half. The second half, nope. It's just not my cup of tea. And then we have The Maze Runner, The Death Cure. I finally finished the Maze Runner films, and I'm a big fan of the first one. The first one's actually really good. And then, for some odd reason, the other ones are just, a huge meh, in my opinion. And then we have Adam Sandler's Murder Mystery from Netflix. This was actually really fun. It's not great. It's not bad, but it's good. It's fun. It's a very fun film. And then I saw in the theater Birds of Prey, called the Fabulous And wow, I'm not even gonna say it because it's kind of hard to say. I don't know why. I can't speak. But wasn't really a big fan. DC really just makes me angry with this one. Like, it's so convoluted. It just feels rushed at times, and like for me, it's just like it felt a little excessive with the violence. It just was not my cup of tea, and that's how it is, I guess. And then I finally saw the 1995 Mortal Kombat, and I can see why people like it. I'm just not a fan. It's just something that was okay. But I've yet to see the sequel, which I hear, and I've seen clips of it, of lines and stuff, and it's okay. I'm not a huge fan, but, you know, hey, what are you going to do? And then we have the animated Addams Family, which is okay. Could have been better, and they're making a sequel, so apparently a lot of people liked it enough for them to make a sequel. I just wasn't a fan. So yeah. And then we have 1976 version of King Kong with Jeff Bridges. This movie is interesting. It's was a lot better than I was expecting. Not as good though, but not as bad either. But I'd say of all the King Kong movies, this would be ranked in the least favorite of mine. But it was still a nice watch to see at least once, and Jeff Bridges was cool to see in King Kong of 1976. And then we have a very surprising film that was a lot better than I was expecting, called Psycho 2, the sequel to Alfred Hitchcock's famous film Psycho. And they actually bring back Anthony Perkins, who played the iconic character from Psycho. And man, oh man, it is interesting what they do. And I'm not going to say what happens, but this movie I highly recommend to watch, because like it's very surprising, especially with, you know, being as good as it is, even though it doesn't come up to par as the first Psycho, but it is good. And then we have The Core from 2003, a movie about scientists going down to the core of the Earth to cool down the Earth, I guess. Wasn't that memorable? It was fine. It was one of those fun, you know, action flicks that you watch to, you know, just sit down and when you're bored and all that kind of stuff. So it was fun. And then we have James Belushi's K-9. It was okay. And then we have Deepwater Horizon. Yeah, with Mark Wahlberg. This is actually a really great thriller. It's I highly recommend this one. It's so good. Like it's about that famous oil spill from years back, and Deepwater Horizon is just a fantastic thriller, well done, and I highly recommend it. And then we have Six Underground from Netflix with Ryan Reynolds and directed by Michael Bay. It's fine for what it is. The opening action sequence is fun, but you know, what can you do? It's Michael Bay. He's all about that you know, aesthetic. And then we have I Am Mother from Netflix. I highly recommend this. It's actually a nice little thriller, sci-fi thriller. It's got a very small cast of like 2 people, and it's a very isolated film. And if you have never heard about it, and if you have never heard about it, well, you've heard about it now, and it's on Netflix. I highly recommend it. And up next is For Your Eyes Only. Obviously, going back to what I was saying about the other James Bond film that I saw earlier, was that, you know, getting ready for No Time to Die, and we all know what happened with that. But, you know, the older James Bond, they're just okay. More like Daniel Craig's are pretty good, but I would say Sean Connery of the older ones I highly recommend. But they're all worth watching once. So, and then we have Raising Arizona by the Coen Brothers and starring Nicolas Cage in one of his earlier roles. This is a fun little comedy. It's a cute little story about a couple who can't have kids, and they steal a kid for money and all that kind of stuff. And it's a fun flick. It's a fun flick. And then we have 2019's Ready or Not, which, this is an excellent movie. It's one of those flicks that I saw the trailer for and I was like, okay, but, you know, And then when I finally saw it, it was like, you know what, this is great. The ending is a little but the rest of the movie is like great, and like I watched it again, I didn't mind the ending, and you know what, hey, it's great. And then at the end of February, the last film of February, we have 2014's Denzel Washington's The Equalizer, which a lot of people like this movie. I'm not quite sure why people like this. It's just okay. People were like, hey, John Wick, but with Denzel Washington. It's like, no, not really. It's not even close. But just, it's not my cup of tea. Not my cup of tea. And starting into the month of March, we got the sequel to one of my favorite films, The Hustler, called The Color of Money, starring Tom Cruise and directed by Martin Scorsese. I had kind of high expectations for this since it was a favorite of mine of The Hustler, and it being a sequel, but I was I was rather disappointed, and hey, you know what? It was okay, it was worth watching once, but I got what I guess I was going to get it for, but hey. And then up next we have Blue Velvet, a very interesting flick. Not my cup of tea. It's one of those weird, films, but hey, what are you gonna do? And then we have 1986's Pretty in Pink. It's fine. And then we have 1985's and Clint Eastwood's Pale Rider. It's a fine western, kind of, there's a controversial scene in this that I know a lot of people talk about it and kind of go, ugh. But the movie was fine. Could have been better. And then one of the final films of 2020 where I actually had got to see before theaters closed and Corona and all that was Onward. I actually really liked this. Wasn't as good as, Soul from later this year, but it's good. It's was an emotional story, about the kids and wanting to see their father again, and going on a journey to find the rest of his body and all that kind of stuff. So hey, it was fine. And then the final film that I actually saw in theaters before they all closed was Sonic the Hedgehog. That movie, wow. I mean, we all remember the trailers and all that kind of stuff. It was okay. But Sonic the Hedgehog, it was actually a lot better than I expected. Jim Carrey was fun to watch. The animation of from going from what it was in that original trailer to what it was in the movie, it was like, okay, you know what? It was fun. It was worth it for changing the animation, and I recommend it. And then we have 2019's Fighting with My Family. This was a fun flick. It's about the MMA and fighting, the wrestling, fighting type stuff, and about a family who is into that kind of stuff, and they get into that type of thing, and it's good. And then check that. I was wrong about Sonic the Hedgehog. This is the film that was the actual final film of 2020 that I saw in theaters before everything closed. I actually saw this with my sister, and this film is amazing. The Invisible Man. I was watching the trailers. The trailers did not interest me at all. There was just nothing that could get me to go see it. And then my sister was like, hey, I'm going to see this. Would you like to come with? I was doing nothing, so I was like, you know what, fine, sure, I'll go see it. I'll go humor the movie, I guess. And my gosh, the music, the acting, the way the film is shot, man, I want to do a movie review of this film, so I'll keep my thoughts, most of my thoughts from this, talk about it right now. And but I highly recommend this. This film was surprised me so much, and I love this movie. And then we have Steven Spielberg's The Color Purple. This was a hard watch, um, about the early days with slaves and stuff like that, and uh, it's got Whoopi Goldberg, and I recommend it. Kinda, it's one of those movies you go in on your own, you know, and it's one of those movies. Yeah, I recommend, but cautiously. And then we have Tom Hanks's one of his earlier films, The Bachelor Party. This was kind of interesting. Ooh, and it's one of those earlier films that it's kind of like National Lampoon, but not really. And then we have a Johnny Depp film called Dark Shadows. Not a fan of this one. It's just rather dull. It's rather just like it's just forgettable. And then we have 1957's 3:10 to Yuma, where we have, and then we have 3:10 to Yuma, which is just a film that is just an excellent western. I highly recommend it. It's beautiful, and actually love the remake with Russell Crowe and Christian Bale. But this one is pretty much on par with the remake. It's really good. And then we have Jerry Lewis's The Nutty Professor, and I can tell you, I'm probably going to offend some people, but I am not a fan of Jerry Lewis at all. He is not funny to me, but this movie was fun to watch since, Eddie Murphy's got the Nutty Professor as well in his roster. And this one, the original, I'm just not a fan of Jerry Lewis. I really am not. And then we have a wonderful film from 2007 called Waitress. It's actually really interesting with this one. It's got Andy Griffith is one of his later roles, and it's a nice film with food and stuff. It's one of those food movies where they really go for giving you shots of food and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I recommend it. It's a fun flick. And then we have DreamWorks' Abominable. Wasn't a fan, so it was just okay. And then we have John Wayne's El Dorado from 1966. Really like this one. It's a really good western. I highly recommend it. And then we have The Ghost and Mr. Chicken with Don Knotts. These movies, he left the Andy Griffith Show for these type of movies, and it's like, it's fun, I guess, but it's like, I feel like you could have just kept on going with the show of the Andy Griffith, and it's like, okay. And then we have one of Steven Spielberg's very first films, The Sugarland Express, based on a true story from 1974. It's fine. It's a fun watch because it's Steven Spielberg, to see his earlier work and all that kind of stuff, so, yeah. And then we have, from 1946, The Harvey Girls starring Judy Garland, a musical. I'm a big fan of musicals. Yeah, it's a western as well, and, it's fun. It's you can check it out, and I recommend it as well if you're into musicals. And then another musical, and the original Dr. Dolittle from 1967. It's also a Best Picture winner. It's fine for what it is. It's fun. I don't highly recommend it, but it's a fun watch if you are into that kind of thing. And then we have another musical called It's Always Fair Weather from 1955. And then the next one we have is 1957's Jailhouse Rock. I believe this is the first Elvis Presley movie I've seen. It's like, my Nana was always a fan. I've always heard his music and all that kind of stuff. But Jailhouse Rock, first Elvis Presley movie, yeah, it was good. And the last film of March is 8 Mile, from 2002. Eminem hey, you know what? It's fun. It's fine. Um, I'm not a big fan of like the rap thing and whatever, but hey, to each his own. And then starting in the month of April, we have Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. Uh, Not a fan. And then we have a beautiful film called Juno, about a girl who becomes pregnant at a young age and is considering abortion, and then finds out that you can put your child up for adoption, and it's such a beautiful little film. I highly recommend it. And then we have Netflix's Bright with Will Smith, um, kind of like a Walking Dead type, like fantasy, um, Lord of the Rings, all that kind of stuff, type movies and shows. It's fine for what it is. Um, do I recommend it? Sure, I guess. And then we have Ryan Reynolds Waiting from 2005. I am not a fan. This movie was a little too awkward for me. Um, and Ryan Reynolds, it's fun watching him when he's younger, but. And then we have one of my favorites that I saw of last year from 1978, Fedora. Oh my word, I'm a huge fan of these type of movies, these thriller mystery films, and like, I'm a huge fan of like movie twists and stuff as long as they're good. This movie I highly recommend. Oh, it is so good. And then we have a very surprising film that I had a low expectations for, called Isn't It Romantic? I had no interest in this. And then I just was bored and sat down one day to watch it. Pleasantly surprised to see it. It was fun. And then I saw Stuber. Another surprising one. It wasn't as good, but still fun to watch. But yeah, Stuber. And then we have a very interesting film with Ryan Gosling called Lars and the Real Girl, about a very awkward man who gets a sex doll, and you know, it's a very strange film. He gets a sex doll, and the doll he makes his girlfriend, and he shows her off to people, and it's it's an interesting film with Ryan Gosling. And then we have Julia and Julie, from Amy Adams and Meryl Streep. Amy Adams can never seem to go wrong with her. Meryl Streep, she was fine when she was younger. I feel like she's a little overrated these days, but she's still good in this one. And then we have from 1966 Fahrenheit 451. It's pretty good, interesting film from futuristic film, and kind of parallels today very eerily. It's very kind of scary. And then we have Cary Grant's The Awful Truth from 1937. This film is pretty funny. Um, would I recommend it? Kind of, sort of depends on your taste of film. But yeah, The Awful Truth. And then we have from 2018 Stan and Ollie, about Laurel and Hardy, an early comedy duo from the 30s and 40s. I'm not a big fan of Laurel and Hardy, but this movie was just gave me a whole perspective on them, and it was just gave me a whole new respect for them. And then we have 2012, a film called Hitchcock, about the making of the film Psycho, with Anthony Hopkins as Hitchcock, and you had Scarlett Johansson and a few other stars. It's really good. I highly recommend it. And then we have probably one of the greatest villains of all time in one of the best films I saw from last year, Mutiny on the Bounty, with from 1935, with Cary Grant and Clark Gable and Charles Lawton. Oh my gosh, this film has one of the best villains of all time. It's infuriating to watch this man go and do what he does on the ship and bring out mutiny and all that kind of stuff. It's simply an incredible film. It's amazing. And then we have from 1945 Alfred Hitchcock's Under Capricorn. Um, Definitely recommend any Alfred Hitchcock film, even if it's okay or amazing. And then we have a disaster of a film called Othello, directed by Orson Welles. I checked out the history of this film, and it was just like finding out that it was just put together and really rather quickly and all that kind of stuff. But it's still worth a watch to see how how bad it is. But from 1951, hey, Orson Welles, I'm a huge fan. You know, I'll watch anything he makes, especially after Citizen Kane. And then we have a great war film called Battle of the Bulge. Um, was very surprised by this movie. It's really good. And then we have from 2019 Maleficent, Mistress of Evil. Not a huge fan of the first one. This one was actually better than the first one. But I'm just not a fan of the Maleficent franchise. It's just feels weird. And then from 2011 we have Contagion, which I'm very surprised with this. Because with the pandemic that happened, this film came out basically 10 years before what happened here in 2020. And, like, Contagion, it basically was like, it's so weird. It's such a scary movie, like how, social distancing and the virus and all that kind of stuff. Like, I highly recommend it. It is a scary film. And then the final film of April, we have A Time to Kill. Man, this movie just is a great, and it's one of my favorite film genres of the courtroom drama. A Time to Kill. The final 30 minutes with Matthew McConaughey in a monologue that is just powerful and just gets you with the final four words. I won't spoil it, but I highly recommend this film. It's wow. And then we skip from all the way from April to August. This year was just 2020 was just a year where it was just like, I don't know, with theaters closing and all that kind of stuff. It just kind of brought me down with watching movies, and I decided to watch a bunch of TV shows, binge watch, TV shows and stuff, because it's like, hey, pass the time and whatever in quarantine and all that kind of stuff. But August I saw two movies. One was called Tall Girl. And then, oh boy, Kissing Booth. The Kissing Booth, the first one. Oh boy. Oh my word, it was just, this movie. And then going all the way to September, going from August to September, we have the sequel, The Kissing Booth 2. Both movies, they're just, I don't know. Oh boy. And then in 2019 we have Jojo Rabbit. I saw this film, and it's got Scarlett Johansson and stars Taika Waititi, and it's a comedy. It's like fine. It's good. It's good. Was nominated for Best Picture. I can see why, and it's really, really good. And then we have from 1941, Sergeant York, a war film. I can tell from watching this movie that Mel Gibson was very inspired by it when he made Hacksaw Ridge, because I can see a few similarities with it, and it's good. I highly recommend it. And then we have one of the worst movies I saw of last year, The Babysitter Killer Queen. This was really disappointing, because you got the first one, which is actually really fun. It's really good. And then you got this one. It's just the babysitter Killer Queen. It's infuriating. And then you got Whatever Happened to Baby Jane from 1962 with Betty Davis. And oh my word, can't ever go wrong with her. It's if you don't know who she is, you gotta check her out in her movies. She's so good. And then one of the best movies I saw of last year, from 1961 with one of my favorite actors, Sidney Poitier, A Raisin in the Sun. I'm a huge fan of these films where they show, either, gay or black or, any minority, fighting, the majority and whatever, and, coming out on top. It's amazing. I love A Raisin in the Sun. I highly recommend it. And then we have Disney Plus's Togo, which, surprisingly, I think this is one of their best original Disney Plus films that direct to Disney Plus, and it's really good. And then we have Sean Connery's The Wind and the Lion. I'm not a huge fan. It's okay. And then we have 2012's Anna Karenina. Had high expectations for this, and I got something different. It was rather disappointing, but I think it's one of those movies I need to rewatch because I had different expectations, and now that I know what I am going to get, I need to rewatch it. So then we have from 2020 Netflix's Enola Holmes, which I was surprised by this. It's really good. It's about the cousin of Sherlock Holmes, and got the girl from Stranger Things, and I actually feel like she could be nominated for Best Actress this year, at least in my opinion. She was really great here. And then we have from 2001, The Wedding Planner, with Matthew McConaughey. It was okay. One of those cliche romantic stories. And then we have 2008's Cadillac Records. I had high expectations for this as well. One of those, biopics, music biopics, and it was okay. Just simply an A-okay movie. And then we go into October. We have Jerry Lewis's Artists and Models. I only saw this because it's a musical. Again, like I said, I'm not a fan of Jerry Lewis. It's just, I don't get it. And then we have, from 1957, Les Girls with Gene Kelly. This was rather disappointing. Because you got Gene Kelly, hey, great dancer, great singer, but rather disappointing. And then we have The Inspector General, starring one of my favorite movie stars, Danny Kaye. I am a huge fan of The Court Jester, but ever since then, his films are okay, but The Inspector General, I highly recommend, watching his films just for the way he comes off with his comedy and the way how he can quick talk and say these raps that are just like, whoa, how do you do that? And then we have 1982's, the sequel to Grease, Grease 2. Like, the first song, it's great. And then after that, it just goes downhill. I'm just like, oh my gosh, why? And then we have Thoroughly Modern Millie from 1967 with Julie Andrews. The first half of this movie, excellent. It's an excellent musical. And then when you go to intermission, and then you get to the second act, it just gets rather dull and boring. So it's like, do I recommend it? Do I not recommend it? Yeah, I guess I recommend it for at least the first half. And then you can just turn it off for the rest of it. Or finish watching it if you want to, And then we have John Wayne's Chisholm from 1970. It's pretty good. It's, you can't really go wrong with John Wayne and his westerns, At least not yet. I've yet to see it if that happens, so. And then we have a rather emotional film from Disney Plus called Clouds. I had no idea what this was. My sister wanted to watch it, and it's actually pretty good. It's kind of emotional. It's really sad and whatever, but oh man, but yeah. And then we have from 1970 Catch-22. Not a huge fan. I went into this one blind, and it's a comedy, and the comedy just did not work for me. Just did not work for me at all. And then second to last is Extraction from 2020 from Netflix. They got this really cool 20-minute long fight scene, one take, one shot. I'm a sucker for that. I really am. It's so good. And then from October 22nd, the final film of this video, because you'll be able to see November and December in the description below or above in the link. The final film from 2020 for this video is Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story from 2007. I am a huge fan of Walk the Line, and this film is is parodying that film, and it's actually pretty good. It's not great, it's not bad, but it is fine. I recommend it. It's fun, and I appreciate you for coming here and watching this whole video. If you did, or if you skipped, that's fine. But thank you for being here. If you're new here, put down in the comments that you are new here and what you liked about this video, what you disliked. Like the video if you liked it. Subscribe if you feel like this is worth your time. And if you are a returning subscriber, I appreciate you. Thank you for supporting me. And see you with what I saw for the first time in 2021 next year for this video. But if you are still here for the other videos and want to watch my DVD hauls and movie reviews, thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you all. Stay random, guys.